A soldier saves a little girl trapped in a burning car, not knowing she's the daughter of the billionaire who betrayed her in the past. What happens next is unbelievable. The sun was setting on the horizon as Kayla Thompson drove down the empty highway. Her military uniform was still impeccable despite a long day on the base, where she had just finalized her discharge papers. 30 years old and feeling like she had lost everything that mattered. The reflection in the rearview mirror showed a tired face, deep dark circles under her eyes, her brown hair pulled back in a perfect military bun. 5 years serving in conflict zones, and now she was coming back to what? To an empty apartment with no one waiting for her, no purpose. The radio played softly, news about some political crisis that seemed insignificant after what she had seen. Kayla turned it off, preferring the silence. Priorities, she murmured to herself, adjusting the starched collar of her uniform. It was what her commanding officer always repeated when she felt overwhelmed. But now, with an early discharge for psychological reasons, what were her priorities? The curve in the road revealed something that made her slam on the brakes. About 50 yards ahead, a silver SUV was overturned on the shoulder. Dark smoke billowed from the crumpled hood, and small flames were starting to appear. There was no hesitation. Her military training took over. She quickly parked, leaving her emergency lights flashing, and ran toward the vehicle. Her military boots pounded heavily against the asphalt as the heat intensified the closer she got. She crouched down to look through the windows. She couldn't see the driver clearly, but there was movement in the back seat. A faint cry reached her ears. "Is anyone in there?" she shouted, banging on the rear window. The crying grew louder. Through the cracked glass, she saw a small child stuck in a car seat, surrounded by increasingly thick smoke. "Hang on!" she yelled, looking for something to break the glass. The flames were spreading fast. With no time to lose, Kayla took off her uniform jacket, wrapped it around her arm, and struck the already cracked rear window. Once, twice, 3 times until it gave way, scattering fragments onto the ground. "It's going to be okay," she said, reaching her arms inside the car. The little girl was crying, clutching a teddy bear. Her blue eyes, wide with fear, met Kayla's. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old, with blonde hair and tear-streaked cheeks. The fire was already reaching the interior of the vehicle. Kayla struggled with the clasp of the car seat that held the child. "What's your name?" she asked, keeping her voice calm as her fingers worked on the jammed mechanism. "And Nora," she answered between sobs. "Nora Bennett." "Nora, that's a beautiful name. I'm Kayla. I'm going to get you out of here, but I need you to stay very still, okay?" The girl nodded, hugging the bear tightly against her chest. The clasp finally gave way, and Kayla pulled her out through the window, feeling the intense heat on her back. She had barely taken 10 steps when she heard a pop. Instinctively, she shielded the girl's head, turning her back to the vehicle. The explosion was deafening. A wave of heat pushed them forward, nearly knocking Kayla over. "My daddy!" Nora screamed, trying to turn around. Kayla held her tight. "The firefighters will help your dad, sweetie. We need to stay back now." Nora buried her face in Kayla's shoulder, trembling. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Kayla carried the girl to the grass on the side of the road, sitting down with her in her lap. "Look, they're coming to help us," she said, brushing soot-stained hair from the child's face. Nora lifted her eyes, red from crying. "Are you a soldier?" Kayla nodded, aware of her camouflage uniform, now stained with soot. "Yes, I am. Daddy says soldiers are heroes." A lump formed in Kayla's throat. Hero was the last thing she felt like. But to this child, in this moment, maybe she was. The paramedics arrived first, followed by firefighters and police officers. Kayla quickly explained what had happened as they placed Nora on a stretcher. The girl refused to let go of her hand. "Are you coming with me?" she asked, her eyes pleading. Kayla looked at the paramedic, who nodded. "You can ride along." In the ambulance, Kayla held Nora's hand while the paramedics checked her vital signs. The girl coughed occasionally. She had inhaled some smoke, but she seemed okay. "You're very brave, you know that," Kayla said, distracting her from the medical procedures. Nora shook her head. "I'm scared." "Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. It means you're smart. Even I get scared sometimes. Really? The blue eyes widened. Really? Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you are. They arrived at the hospital, a mid-sized building with bright lights and the typical hustle and bustle of an emergency room. Nora was taken inside, and Kayla followed, still holding the teddy bear the girl had dropped. A nurse approached as the doctors examined Nora. "Are you a relative?" she asked, looking at the military uniform. "No, I pulled her from the car." "Her name?" "Nora Bennett. She's about 5. The nurse asked a few more questions that Kayla couldn't answer. She knew nothing about the girl besides her name. "You can wait over there," the nurse indicated. "We'll try to locate the family." Kayla nodded and went to the waiting room. Only then did she notice her own state, uniform torn and scorched, hands scratched, face covered in soot. A shallow cut on her arm left a blood stain on her sleeve. She sat in an uncomfortable chair and examined the teddy bear in her hands. It was brown with a red ribbon around its neck, now singed at the ends. One button eye was missing, and stuffing peeked through a small tear. It was clearly someone's favorite toy, carried everywhere, loved until it was worn. Time passed slowly. Kayla refused treatment for her scratches and also declined a police officer's offer to take her home after giving her statement. "Then I can't leave yet," she said simply. The officer nodded respectfully and promised to return if he needed more information. People came and went from the waiting room, a mother with a crying baby, a man holding a bloody cloth to his hand, a teenager leaning on her parents, limping. The normal routine of an ER in the late afternoon. Kayla remained still, as if standing guard. Every so often, she checked the clock on the wall, almost 6 p.m. Why was she so worried about a child she hadn't even known a few hours ago? Why couldn't she just leave? A doctor finally approached. "Are you the one who rescued little Nora?" Kayla jumped to her feet. "How is she?" "She's going to be fine. She inhaled some smoke and has a few scratches, but nothing serious. She's a lucky girl." The doctor smiled. "She's been asking for you." "And was there anyone else in the car with her?" Kayla asked hesitantly. "The firefighters are still on the scene. It looks like the driver was ejected before the explosion. The police are investigating." Kayla felt a mix of relief and concern. "Have you been able to contact any family?" "We're trying. We found a damaged cell phone in the car. For now, she's under observation." "Can I see her?" The doctor hesitated, but then nodded. "Just for a few minutes. She's sedated, but awake." Nora was in a small room with 2 beds, though the other was empty. Oxygen tubes were in her nostrils, a bandage on her forehead, her little face pale against the white pillow. When she saw Kayla, her eyes lit up. "You stayed," she said in a hoarse voice. Kayla approached, holding out the teddy bear. "I brought your friend." Nora reached for the toy, hugging it tightly. "Teddy," she murmured. "Where's my daddy?" Kayla's heart ached. "The doctors are looking for him, sweetie. They'll find him soon." The girl nodded, drowsy. The medication was taking effect. "Don't go," she murmured, her eyes heavy. "I'm not going anywhere," Kayla replied, holding her small hand. A nurse came in to check the monitors. "She needs to rest now," he said gently. Kayla nodded and returned to the waiting room. On the way, she stopped in the restroom and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her dirty face, a cut on her forehead she hadn't even noticed, her ruined uniform. She washed her hands and face, trying to clean off at least some of the soot. Returning to her seat, Kayla wondered why she felt so connected to this girl. Maybe because, after years of seeing destruction, she needed a reminder that she could still save someone. Or maybe because, in that moment of rescue, she had felt a purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. The hours passed. Kayla refused the coffee and food offered by a kind nurse. Her stomach was too tied in knots to accept anything. "You really saved that little girl," the nurse commented before walking away. The car exploded seconds later. Kayla just nodded. She hadn't done anything extraordinary, just reacted as she was trained to react. Anyone would have done the same. Right? The clock showed almost 6 p.m. when the double doors at the entrance suddenly swung open. A man ran in, his face pale with worry, his clothes disheveled as if he had dressed in a hurry. He approached the reception desk, speaking quickly, gesturing with his hands. Kayla couldn't hear what he was saying, but something in the urgency of his movements caught her attention. She watched as the receptionist nodded and asked a few questions. The man ran his hands through his dark hair repeatedly, an anxious gesture. When the receptionist pointed down the hallway where Nora had been taken, Kayla understood. It was the girl's father. A different doctor than the one who had spoken to Kayla appeared and led the man down the same hallway. The anxiety was visible in every step, in his tense shoulders, in the way he followed the doctor too closely. Kayla should have felt relieved. The girl wasn't alone after all. Her father was alive and would be with her now. Her part in this story was over. She could leave. But she couldn't move. She sat there, holding the teddy bear she had forgotten to return, watching the hallway where Nora's father had disappeared. 15 minutes later, the doctor returned to the waiting room, looking around as if searching for someone. When his eyes found Kayla in her stained military uniform, he approached. "Ma'am, are you the soldier who rescued the little girl?" Kayla nodded, standing up. "How is she?" "She's fine. Her father is with her now." The doctor smiled. "He would like to speak with you, if you don't mind." Kayla hesitated. Her mission was complete. The girl was safe, her father was with her. What else was there to say? But she nodded anyway. Of course. She followed the doctor down the hall, still clutching the singed teddy bear, a silent symbol of the childhood almost lost that afternoon. Her steps echoed on the linoleum floor, each one bringing her closer to a meeting she didn't know why she was so anxious about. She couldn't explain why she felt she couldn't leave. But something inside her said that her connection with Nora Bennett was just beginning. Kayla returned to Nora's room after washing her face in the restroom. The soot stains were partially gone, but her military uniform still bore the marks of the rescue. She sat in the chair next to the bed, watching the girl who slept peacefully. The hospital had settled into its nighttime rhythm. The hallways were quieter, the lights dimmed, with only the occasional sound of hurried footsteps or the distant beep of some equipment. Kayla checked her watch. It was past 8 p.m. Somewhere, someone had to be worried about Nora. The girl stirred, her eyes blinking a few times before opening completely. For a moment she seemed confused, looking around without recognizing her surroundings. Then her gaze found Kayla, and a small smile lit up her face. "You really stayed," Nora murmured, her voice still hoarse from the smoke she had inhaled. "I promised I would, didn't I?" Kayla replied, adjusting the blanket that had slipped. Nora hugged the teddy bear tighter. Teddy stayed too. "He's a good friend," Kayla agreed. "How are you feeling?" "My throat hurts. And I'm thirsty." Kayla grabbed a cup of water from the bedside table and helped the girl drink. Nora swallowed slowly, wincing. "Did they find my daddy?" she asked, looking hopefully toward the door. "I'm sure he'll be here soon," Kayla replied, trying to sound confident. The doctors hadn't given any more updates, but she held out hope that Nora's father was okay. A nurse came in to check the girl's vital signs. He jotted something on his clipboard and adjusted the IV drip. "She's doing very well," he commented to Kayla. "How the doctor said she'll probably be able to go home tomorrow if we can find her family." Kayla nodded, grateful for the news. The nurse left, leaving them alone again. "I don't want to stay here," Nora whispered. "Hospitals are scary." "I know, but the doctors need to make sure you're okay before they can let you go." Nora was silent for a moment, her fingers playing with the teddy bear's torn ear. "Why are you a soldier?" The question caught Kayla by surprise. "Well, I wanted to help people. To protect those who need protecting. Like you protected me today." "Yes, exactly like today." Nora seemed to consider the answer. "Do you have kids?" Another unexpected blow. "No," Kayla replied, feeling a familiar pang of sadness. "I don't." "Why not?" "I guess I never found the right time." Before Nora could ask any more questions, the sound of raised voices came from the hallway. Someone was speaking loudly, urgently, at the reception desk. Hurried footsteps approached. The room door swung open suddenly. A tall man, about 35, with disheveled dark hair and blue eyes identical to Nora's, stood in the doorway, breathing heavily as if he had run a marathon. "Daddy!" Nora cried, trying to sit up. Adrian Bennett rushed to his daughter, hugging her carefully among the tubes and wires. His body trembled slightly as he held her, as if fearing she might disappear if he let go. "My little girl," he murmured into her hair, his voice thick with emotion. "You're okay. Are you hurt? I'm so sorry. So sorry." "I'm okay, Daddy. The soldier saved me," Nora replied, pointing to Kayla. Adrian looked up, noticing Kayla for the first time. For an instant, he was so focused on the relief of seeing his daughter that he paid no attention to anything else. His eyes, red and swollen, met Kayla's. There was genuine gratitude there. You got her out of the car?" he asked, still holding Nora with one arm. Kayla nodded, uncomfortable with the attention. "I was just driving by when I saw the accident." Adrian took a deep breath, as if trying to compose himself. "I don't know how to thank you. They told me the car exploded. If you hadn't—" "You don't have to thank me," Kayla interrupted, standing up. "I just did what anyone would have done." Something in her movement caught Adrian's attention. His eyes scanned her military uniform, her face, and then widened in shock. The color drained from his face, as if he had seen a ghost. "Kayla," he whispered in disbelief. "Kayla Thompson." Time seemed to freeze. Kayla felt her heart race as she studied the face of the man before her. The recognition hit her like a punch to the gut. Adrian Bennett, the man who had broken her heart 5 years ago. "You know each other?" Nora asked, looking curiously from one to the other. Adrian seemed to have lost the ability to speak. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The hand not holding Nora was trembling visibly. "We met a long time ago," Kayla replied, her voice strangely calm, contrasting with the storm raging inside her. The memories came in flashes, Adrian and her planning a future together. The apartment they had chosen, the dinner where she found him and Sienna, her best friend since high school, holding hands, the confession, the double betrayal that destroyed not only their relationship, but also a years-long friendship. Kayla, Adrian finally found his voice, but she held up a hand, stopping him. "It doesn't matter now," she said, grabbing her military jacket from the chair. "The important thing is that Nora is okay, and so are you." Adrian took a step toward her. "Please, wait, it can't be a coincidence. So of all the people—" "Sometimes the world is too small," Kayla replied, avoiding his gaze. "Stay with her. She needs you now." Nora watched the scene with attentive eyes, sensing the tension between the adults, even without understanding it. "Are you leaving already, soldier?" she asked, disappointment evident in her childish voice. Kayla forced a smile. "Yes, I have to go, sweetie, but you're in good hands now. Will you come back to visit me?" The question hurt more than Kayla expected. "Rest well, okay. Get better soon." Before Adrian could say anything else, Kayla headed for the door. She could feel his gaze burning into her back, heavy with everything left unsaid. "Kayla," Adrian called one last time, his voice low but intense. "What happened? With Sienna and me? I never wanted to—" She paused at the door, without turning around. She shook her head slightly. "It was a long time ago, Adrian. It doesn't matter anymore." In the hallway, Kayla took a deep breath, trying to control the turmoil of emotions. The irony didn't escape her, saving Adrian's daughter of all people. The daughter he had with Sienna? Probably. Nora's age matched the time that had passed. As she walked toward the exit, she felt strangely empty. Not anger, not resentment, just a deep exhaustion. Fate had a cruel sense of humor, but the chapter was closed. She had done her part, saved the girl, and now their lives would go their separate ways again. She pushed open the hospital doors and faced the cold night. She didn't look back. She was convinced she would never see Adrian Bennett or his daughter again. The universe couldn't be so cruel as to make their paths cross again. She was wrong. In the hospital room, Nora watched the door through which Kayla had just left. Her little face showed a mixture of confusion and sadness. "Daddy," she called in a small voice, tugging on Adrian's sleeve, who was still staring intently at the door. "Why did the soldier leave?" She looked sad. Adrian snapped out of his trance and turned his attention back to his daughter. She has things to do, sweetie, but she's coming back, right? Nora insisted, clutching Teddy to her chest. She saved me. And Teddy, too. She has to come back. Adrian swallowed hard, sitting in the chair Kayla had occupied moments before. I don't know, sweetie. Did you two fight? Nora asked, in surprising Adrian with her perception. You looked mad at each other. It's complicated, Nora. The girl frowned, not satisfied with the answer. I want her to come back. She's nice and brave. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he always had when he was upset. Yes, she was always brave, he murmured, more to himself than to Nora. Then ask her to come back, Nora said, as if it were the most obvious solution in the world. Adrian looked at his daughter, seeing in her eyes the same determination he had always admired in Kayla. It was strange how fate worked sometimes. 5 years trying to forget what he had done, how much he had hurt the only woman he had ever truly loved, and now she saved his daughter from certain death. Let's get some rest now, okay? Adrian deflected, adjusting the blankets around Nora. We'll talk more tomorrow. But Nora wasn't ready to give up. Promise you'll bring the soldier back. Please, Daddy. Adrian hesitated, knowing it was a promise he probably couldn't keep. Kayla had every right to never want to see him again, but Nora's pleading look was impossible to resist. I'll try, sweetie. I'll try. Nora seemed to accept the answer, settling into the pillows, but her eyes remained fixed on the door, as if expecting Kayla to return at any moment. 3 days had passed since the accident. Kayla returned to her routine at the military base, finalizing the last details of her discharge. The paperwork seemed endless. Reports, psychological evaluations, equipment inventory, bureaucratic work that kept her hands busy but not her mind. Her thoughts kept drifting back to that hospital room, to Nora, to Adrian. Captain Roberts' office was small and stuffy, with an old fan struggling against the afternoon heat. Kayla signed the last form and pushed it across the desk. There, sir. I think that's the last one. The captain, a middle-aged man with graying temples, nodded as he reviewed the document. Everything's in order, Thompson. Your official discharge is next week. Until then, just administrative duties. Thank you, sir. I heard what you did on the highway. Good work. Kayla looked away. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't have. The captain studied her for a moment. Are you sure about this discharge? The army needs people like you. I'm sure, sir. Here it's time to move on. Roberts nodded, respecting her decision. Well, you'll always have a home here if you change your mind. Leaving the office, Kayla walked down the familiar hallway of the administration building. Soldiers passed by, saluting as they recognized her insignia. 5 years of service, and she still felt like an outsider sometimes. In the mess hall, she grabbed a coffee and sat alone. The liquid was strong and bitter, just the way she liked it. Her fingers drummed restlessly on the metal table. In a week, she would be out of here. In a week, she would be a civilian again. And then what? Sergeant Thompson. A young voice interrupted her thoughts. Kayla looked up. Their Private T, probably new to the base, stood at attention. Yes? Sorry to bother you, but you have visitors at the main gate. They're asking for you. Kayla frowned. Visitors? Who? A man and a little girl, Sergeant. They said it's important. The coffee suddenly tasted even more bitter. Adrian and Nora. What were they doing here? Tell them I'm on my way. The soldier nodded and left. Kayla remained seated for a few more seconds, taking a deep breath. She had convinced herself that chapter was closed, that she would never see them again. Why would Adrian seek her out? What more could he possibly say after 5 years? On her way to the main gate, she tried to straighten her uniform, running her hands through her hair tied in the regulation bun. A nervous habit she tried to conceal as she saw the two of them waiting outside the guardhouse. Nora spotted Kayla first. Her face lit up with a huge smile, and she tugged on her father's hand, pointing, "Look, Daddy, it's her!" Adrian turned. He looked different from the hospital, shaved and hair-combed, wearing casual but neat clothes. He seemed nervous, adjusting the sunglasses he took off upon seeing her. Kayla waved for the guard to open the gate. They can come in. Nora ran toward her as soon as the gate opened enough, stopping a few feet away, suddenly shy. There were no more oxygen tubes or visible bandages, just a little girl with blonde hair in braids and a hesitant smile. "Hi, soldier," she said softly. "Hi, Nora," Kayla replied, crouching down to the girl's level. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctor said I'm as strong as a lioness," Kayla smiled. "He's right," Adrian approached, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced. Nora insisted on seeing you." Kayla nodded, standing up. The awkward silence lasted only a few seconds before Nora intervened, pulling something from her small pink backpack. "I brought you a present," she announced, holding out a box of chocolates, slightly dented at the edges. "Daddy said everyone likes chocolate." "That's true," Kayla confirmed, accepting the gift. "Thank you, Nora. There's more." The girl rummaged through her backpack again and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I made a drawing, too." Kayla carefully unfolded the paper. It was a drawing made with colorful markers, two figures holding hands. One small is with yellow hair, and a taller one wearing what looked like a green uniform. Above, in uneven, childish letters, was written, "Me and Soldier Kayla." "That's us," Nora explained, pointing. "I drew your green uniform because Daddy said that's the color of soldiers." Kayla felt something tighten in her chest. "It's beautiful, Nora." "Thank you." Adrian cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "Nora hasn't stopped talking about you since the hospital. She really wanted to thank you in person." "You didn't have to," Kayla replied, carefully folding the drawing. "Like I said, anyone would have done the same." "Not just anyone would risk their own life," Adrian insisted. "So the firefighters said the car exploded seconds after you got out with her." Kayla shrugged, avoiding his gaze. Nora watched the two adults, sensing the tension in the air without understanding it. "Do you want to see the base?" Kayla offered, more to break the awkward silence than out of any real desire to show them around. Nora's eyes lit up. "Can we see where you work?" "Of course, it's this way." She led them along the main path, showing them the administration buildings, the central square, the mess hall. Nora asked constant questions, fascinated by everything. Adrian remained a few steps behind, quiet, occasionally interacting when his daughter demanded his attention. In the central square, they stopped near a bench in the shade. Nora ran off to see the flag being raised by some soldiers in the distance. With the girl momentarily distracted, Adrian turned to Kayla. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see. We only came because Nora wouldn't talk about anything else." "It's okay, Adrian. It was a long time ago." "No, it's not," he replied, running a hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture Kayla remembered well. "What I did, the way I hurt you, I've never forgiven myself." Kayla looked away. "I didn't come here to reopen old wounds." "I know," he sighed. "I just wanted you to know that I never intended to—" Nora came running back before he could finish. She tugged on Kayla's uniform sleeve, waiting until she bent down to her level. "Can I ask you something?" she whispered, as if it were a secret. "Of course, sweetie." Nora bit her lip, suddenly nervous. She glanced quickly at her father and then back at Kayla. In a small, hesitant voice, and she asked, "Can you come visit me someday? I stay with the babysitter when Daddy works. It's boring being alone." Kayla's heart clenched. Those blue eyes, so much like Adrian's, stared at her full of hope. Logic told her to refuse, to sever any connection with Adrian and her past. But something in the sincerity of the request completely disarmed her. Adrian quickly intervened. "Nora, Sergeant Thompson is very busy. We can't—" "It's okay," Kayla interrupted, surprising herself. "I can visit Nora." The girl's face lit up. "Really? When?" Kayla hesitated, glancing briefly at Adrian, who looked as surprised as she was by her answer. "How about next week? I'll have more time then." "Promise," Nora insisted, holding out her pinky finger. Kayla linked her finger with the girl's. "Promise." As they said their goodbyes at the gate, Kayla knew she was probably making a mistake. But seeing Nora's smile, waving energetically as they walked away, she decided it was a mistake she was willing to make. Kayla parked her car in front of the address Adrian had sent via text. It was a simple two-story house on a quiet suburban street, with a small front garden and a pink children's bicycle propped up on the porch. She checked her watch, 2 p.m., exactly on time. For a moment, she sat inside the car, questioning whether she should really be there. A week had passed since Nora and Adrian's visit to the military base. Her official discharge from the army had been finalized 2 days ago, and she was now officially in the reserves, a civilian again, with all the time in the world and no certainty about what to do with it. Finally, she took a deep breath and got out of the car. She wore casual clothes, jeans, a white t-shirt and a light jacket, so different from the military uniform she had worn almost daily for the past 5 years. She felt strange, as if she were wearing someone else's clothes. Before she could ring the doorbell, the door suddenly opened. Nora stood there, a smile that seemed to light up her entire face, wearing blue overalls with paint stains on the sleeves. "You really came?" she exclaimed, practically jumping with excitement. A middle-aged woman appeared behind her, smiling gently. "You must be Kayla. I'm Martha, the babysitter." "Nora hasn't talked about anything else all week. I hope I'm not interrupting," Kayla replied, a bit awkwardly. "Not at all. Adrian left everything ready for your visit. He said to make yourself at home." Nora grabbed Kayla's hand and pulled her inside. "Come on, I want to show you my room and my toys and my books and—" "Slow down, honey," Martha interrupted gently. "Let Kayla come inside first." The house was cozy inside, with simple but comfortable furniture. Photos of Nora at different ages decorated the walls. Kayla noticed there were no pictures of a woman who could be the girl's mother, not even pictures of Adrian with Sienna. "Adrian will be back around 7, Martha informed her, grabbing a purse from the kitchen table. "I left a snack in the fridge and there's juice and water. My number is on the list next to the phone if you need anything." "Thank you," Kayla replied. "We'll be fine." As soon as Martha left, Nora started pulling Kayla by the hand again. "Come see my room." Going up the stairs, Kayla realized she was entering completely new territory. Not just Adrian's house, the man who had betrayed her trust years ago, but a child's world, something she had never experienced before. Nora's room was exactly what you would expect from a 5-year-old girl. Lilac walls, a bed with a white canopy, shelves full of children's books, and toys organized in colorful boxes. A small easel was set up near the window, with paint pots and brushes scattered on a small table beside it. "I'm painting a picture," Nora announced, running to the easel. "Want to see?" On the canvas was what appeared to be an attempt at a landscape, a blue sky, green grass, and something that could be interpreted as a sun or a yellow flower. "Taint's turning out beautiful," Kayla praised sincerely. "Want to paint with me?" Nora asked, already setting aside another brush. "Sure," Kayla replied, sitting on the small stool Nora dragged over for her. "But I should warn you, I'm not very good at this." "That's okay, Daddy isn't either, but he tries." For the next hour, they painted side by side. Nora talked non-stop about school, her friends, her bear Teddy, who was properly seated on the bed, with a new button eye sewn on and the scorch marks barely visible after a wash. Kayla listened attentively, fascinated by how a child's mind worked, jumping from one topic to another without a pause, finding wonder in the simplest things. It was refreshing, after years of dealing with the harshness of military life and the complexities of adults. "Daddy said you left because you had a fight," Nora commented suddenly, focused on adding more blue to her painting. Kayla almost dropped her brush. He said that." Nora nodded. "He said you were friends before, but something sad happened and you went away." "It's something like that," Kayla replied, unsure how to approach the subject with a child. "Are you still fighting?" The question, so direct and innocent, caught Kayla off guard. "We're not fighting, Nora. We just went our separate ways." Nora seemed to consider the answer, frowning in concentration. "But now you're back, so you can be friends again, right?" Kayla smiled gently. The simple logic of children was a wonderful thing. "We'll see. I'm here to visit you, remember?" That seemed to satisfy Nora, who smiled and returned to her painting. Later, when they finished, Nora insisted on hanging Kayla's painting, a modest attempt at a sunset, next to hers on the wall. "Now, when you're not here, I'll look at it and remember you," she declared seriously. The afternoon snack consisted of sandwiches and juice, which they ate in the backyard. It was a small but well-kept space, with a small tree that provided pleasant shade. Sitting on a blanket spread on the grass, Nora asked Kayla to tell her stories. "What kind of stories?" Kayla asked. "Soldier stories. You must have seen lots of cool things." Kayla hesitated. Most of her experiences in the army were not suitable for children, but there were some she could adapt. "Well, one time I was in a country very far from here, where there had been an earthquake." She told her about helping rescue people from the rubble, setting up shelters, and distributing supplies. She omitted the harder parts, the bodies, the despair, the scarcity of resources. Instead, she focused on cooperation, hope, and small victories. Nora listened with wide eyes, absorbing every word. When Kayla finished, she applauded enthusiastically. "Another one! Tell me another one!" And so they spent the afternoon with Kayla adapting her experiences into child-appropriate stories, and Nora reacting with questions and comments that were often surprisingly perceptive. As the sun began to set, they went back inside. Nora insisted on showing her book collection, selecting a few favorites for Kayla to read. They sat on the living room sofa, Nora nestled beside Kayla, as they delved into worlds of brave princesses, talking animals, and children with magical powers. Time passed faster than Kayla expected. When she looked at the clock, it was already past 6. Adrian would be back in less than an hour. "I think I need to go, Nora," she said, closing the book they were reading. The girl's face fell instantly. "Already? But it's still early. And you haven't finished the story about the bear who lost his family." "I'll finish it next time," Kayla promised, getting up. "Your dad will be home soon." "But he wants to see you. He said so." Kayla doubted that. Adrian's message had been clear. He would be working late, and Martha would stay until he arrived. The visit was arranged specifically so they wouldn't meet. "Another day, sweetie. I really have to go today." Nora pouted but didn't insist. She helped Kayla put the books away and walked her to the door. There, she hugged her legs tightly. "You'll come back, right?" Kayla bent down, getting to the girl's eye level. "I will, if you want me to." "I do," Nora replied immediately. "I can show you my school next time. It's really close to here." "I'd love to see it." Martha arrived promptly at 6:30, surprised to see Kayla still there. "I was just leaving," Kayla explained. "Joyce, thank you for letting me spend the afternoon with her." "No need to thank me. I've never seen her so excited. It did her good." On the way home, Kayla couldn't stop thinking about the afternoon she had spent. It had been surprisingly pleasant. Nora was an extraordinary child, intelligent, curious, affectionate. It was hard not to be charmed by her. Weeks passed, and the visits became regular. Every Thursday, Kayla would show up at 2 and leave at 6, always before Adrian got home. It was a tacit arrangement between them, brief texts confirming times, but never really meeting. On one of those Thursdays, almost a month after the first visit, they were in the backyard putting together a puzzle when Nora asked the question. "What does a soldier do exactly?" she asked, fitting a piece with her tongue sticking out in concentration. Kayla smiled at the girl's constant curiosity. "Well, it depends on the mission, but mostly, we help people in dangerous places." "Like superheroes?" "Not exactly. We don't have superpowers. Just training for difficult situations. Like my car fire?" "Yes, like that day." Kayla hesitated but continued. "Sometimes we help after natural disasters, like earthquakes or hurricanes. Other times, we protect people in conflict zones." "Is it dangerous?" "It can be," Kayla admitted. "But we train a lot to minimize the risks." Nora was silent for a moment, her little forehead furrowed in concentration as she looked for another puzzle piece. When she finally found it, she looked at Kayla with a seriousness surprising for someone so young. "I want to be a doctor," she declared, "so I can take care of everyone." "A doctor? That's wonderful, Nora." "Yeah, if I'm a doctor, I can help people like you do, but without having to go to dangerous places. And if you get hurt, I can take care of you too." Something stirred inside Kayla, an emotion so pure and unexpected it almost choked her. The idea that this little creature cared so much about her well-being, that she was already thinking of protecting her, was overwhelming. "I'm sure you'll be an amazing doctor," she said, her voice slightly shaky. Nora smiled, satisfied, and went back to the puzzle. She didn't notice the impact her words had on Kayla, who discreetly wiped the corner of her eye. With each visit, the bond between them grew stronger. Kayla started bringing small gifts, a book about the human body when Nora mentioned wanting to be a doctor, a toy first aid kit, a child's stethoscope. Nora absorbed everything with enthusiasm, often examining Kayla or Teddy, prescribing imaginary treatments, and making notes in a little notebook she carried like a medical chart. Occasionally, Martha would share stories about how Nora talked about Kayla at school, drew pictures of her, and told her friends about "my soldier friend who saved me from the fire." On one of those Thursdays, walking back to her car after another afternoon with Nora, Kayla realized something unsettling. She was counting the days between visits. She woke up on Thursdays with an anticipation she didn't feel on any other day of the week. She thought about Nora constantly, worrying if she was okay, imagining what she was doing, planning the next activity they would do together. She stopped on the sidewalk, suddenly shaken by the realization she was getting attached to this girl, far more than she should, far more than was wise. Nora wasn't her daughter. She was Adrian's daughter, the man who had broken her heart, and probably Sienna's, the friend who had betrayed her. She was a constant reminder of a pain she had tried to bury for years, and yet she was letting herself get emotionally involved, creating bonds that would inevitably cause more pain when they broke. Because they would break, wouldn't they? What future could there be in this strange situation? Sooner or later, Adrian would find a new partner, or Nora would grow up and lose interest in these visits, or Kayla herself would need to move on with her life, maybe move far away. She got in the car and rested her forehead on the steering wheel. She should stop the visits now, before the attachment became too strong for them both. It would be the sensible thing to do, the safe thing. But then she remembered Nora's smile when she arrived, the way her little eyes lit up when Kayla praised her drawings, the warmth of her small hand holding hers as they walked through the garden. She realized that this genuine affection was filling spaces in her heart she thought had been destroyed long ago. Spaces that military life, with all its discipline and camaraderie, could never occupy. Spaces that perhaps needed that childish innocence to heal. She started the car, resolute. She wouldn't stop the visits. She would accept the risk of attachment, with all its consequences. Because, for the first time in 5 years, she felt truly alive again. Autumn had arrived, painting the trees in shades of red and gold. The Thursday afternoon was exceptionally quiet, with a gentle breeze rustling the curtains in Adrian's living room. 3 months had passed since Kayla's first visit, and now she knew every corner of that house as if it were her own. Nora had insisted on building a blanket fort in the living room. They had spent the morning positioning chairs, securing sheets with clothespins, and filling the inside with pillows and toys. The result was a makeshift but cozy structure, where they read stories and played doctor and patient, Nora's favorite game lately. After lunch, the girl asked to watch a movie. It didn't take long for the exhaustion from the busy morning to overcome her. Now, Nora was sleeping soundly on the sofa, wrapped in a light blanket, her small body rising and falling with peaceful breaths. In her arms, clutched against her chest, was Teddy, the singed bear that had survived the accident. The new button that replaced the lost eye gleamed in the soft light coming through the window. Kayla watched the scene from the armchair nearby, a cup of cooling tea between her hands. There was something so peaceful about the image of Nora sleeping that moved her in a way she couldn't explain, a mixture of tenderness and melancholy, as if contemplating something precious that didn't belong to her. The silence of the house invited reflection. Kayla let her mind wander to the past, to the dreams she had cultivated before everything fell apart. She remembered conversations with Adrian years ago, when they planned a future together. How they had decided they would have 2 children. "So, they'll never feel alone," Adrian would say. How they discussed names, playing with combinations that sounded good with Bennett. Back then, Kayla already knew she wanted a girl. She imagined herself teaching her to ride a bike, braiding her hair before school, supporting her in whatever interest she developed. She wanted to be the kind of mother who would always be present, unlike her own, who worked 2 jobs and rarely had time for moments like this. That's why Adrian's betrayal hurt so much. It wasn't just the loss of the relationship, but of an entire future she had envisioned for herself. When he chose Sienna, he took with him not only her love but all the dreams Kayla had built around him. Enlisting in the army was her escape, a way to reinvent herself, to find purpose far from the ashes of her shattered plans. And it worked, in a way. For the next 5 years, she rarely thought about family or children. There were missions to complete, lives to save, comrades to protect. It was easier not to think about what could have been. But now, looking at Nora sleeping peacefully, all those buried desires resurfaced. The irony didn't escape her, getting attached to the daughter of the very man who had shattered her dreams, the daughter who could have been hers in another life. Nora stirred in her sleep, murmuring something inaudible and hugging Teddy tighter. Kayla smiled involuntarily. It was impossible not to be charmed by this child. Her endless curiosity, her contagious laugh, her ability to see beauty in the simplest things. In just 3 months, Nora had found a direct path to her heart, tearing down all the defenses Kayla had carefully built over the years, and that terrified her. Because getting attached meant risking loss again. It meant becoming vulnerable, opening herself up to the possibility of pain. And Kayla knew that pain well. She knew how it could consume me, how it could transform a person, but she also realized with growing clarity that it was already too late. She could no longer imagine her Thursdays without Nora. She couldn't imagine not being there to watch her grow, to hear her stories, to answer her endless questions about the world. When exactly had this happened? At what point had this little girl become so important in her life? Maybe it was in those crucial seconds in the burning car, when she held Nora in her arms for the first time. Or maybe it was more gradual, built over each shared afternoon, each story read, each picture colored together. The phone vibrated silently in Kayla's pocket. It was a text from Martha, the babysitter, saying she would be a little late today. Adrian had also texted that he would be later than usual, something about a last-minute meeting at work. This meant Kayla would have to stay past her usual time, possibly until Adrian arrived. The prospect of seeing him after months of careful avoidance made her uneasy. What would she say to him? How would she act? They had maintained minimal communication through texts about visit schedules, but nothing more. It was easier that way, focusing only on Nora. A sudden thought struck her. What if Adrian was doing this on purpose? Maybe this delay was planned, a way to force a meeting that Kayla had been avoiding. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. She was being paranoid. Adrian had been quite respectful of the boundaries she had implicitly set. Nora began to wake up, rubbing her eyes with her small fists. She sat up on the sofa, her hair messy from sleep, looking around as if trying to remember where she was. "I had a dream," she announced when she saw Kayla. "Really? What about—" "I dreamed I was flying." Nora stretched her arms out to the sides, mimicking wings. "I could see the whole city from up there, and you were flying with me." "That sounds like a very good dream," Kayla smiled. "It was, but then I got scared of falling, and you held my hand and said you wouldn't let me." Something tightened in Kayla's chest. "Can't I wouldn't." Nora stood up, still hugging her teddy bear, and walked over to Kayla. Without ceremony, she climbed into her lap, snuggling as if it were the most natural place in the world to be. "What time is Daddy getting home?" she asked, distractedly playing with a button on Kayla's shirt. "He's going to be a little late today." "Martha too." "So you're staying longer?" Nora's face lit up. "We can have dinner together, you, me, and Daddy." Kayla hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea, sweetie." "Why not? Don't you like Daddy?" The question, as direct as only a child can be, caught Kayla off guard. "It's not that, it's complicated." "Why is it complicated?" "Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain things." Kayla couldn't help a small smile. Nora was incredibly perceptive for her age. "Sometimes people have histories together that aren't easy to explain," Kayla tried, "especially to someone your age. Nora frowned, clearly not satisfied with the answer. She was silent for a few moments, her small face concentrated as if solving a complex problem. Then, she looked directly into Kayla's eyes. "I noticed that you and Daddy knew each other before," she said, her voice small but determined. "But it seems like there's something weird between you." Kayla felt her heart race. How had Nora figured that out? They had been so careful, never mentioning the past in front of her. "What makes you think that?" she asked, trying to keep her voice casual. "The way Daddy talks about you, he gets different, and he keeps an old picture in a box in his closet." "A picture?" Kayla couldn't hide her surprise. Nora nodded. "You're both laughing in it. It looks old." "I found it when I was looking for a game." Kayla swallowed hard. She remembered the photo taken during a weekend at the beach almost 6 years ago. She was surprised Adrian had still kept it. "And there's something else," Nora continued, completely unaware of the effect her words were having on Kayla. "Daddy always asks about you after you leave. What we did, if you seemed happy, if you talked about him." This information was even more surprising. Adrian asked about her. Why? What was he trying to find out? "You're very smart, you know that," Kayla said finally, unable to come up with a better response. Nora smiled, pleased with the compliment. "Daddy says so too. He says I'm smart like you—" She stopped abruptly, covering her mouth with her hand as if she had said something she shouldn't have. "Like who?" Kayla pressed gently. "I can't tell. It's a secret." Before Kayla could insist, the sound of a car parking interrupted their conversation. Nora ran to the window, jumping with excitement. "It's Daddy!" "He's home early." Kayla felt a wave of panic. She wasn't prepared for this encounter, not now, especially after what Nora had just revealed. "Nora, I think I should go," she said, quickly getting up and grabbing her purse. "No," the girl protested, running back and grabbing her hand. "Stay for dinner, please." The front door opened before Kayla could answer. Adrian came in, still wearing his work suit, briefcase in hand. He stopped abruptly when he saw Kayla in the living room. "Kayla," he said, surprise evident in his voice. "I thought you'd be gone by now." "Martha is running late," she explained quickly. "I was just leaving." "Daddy, I invited Kayla to have dinner with us," Nora announced, still holding tightly to Kayla's hand. Adrian looked from his daughter to Kayla, an undecided expression on his face. That would be great, if you can stay." There was something in his eyes, a mixture of hope and fear, that made Kayla hesitate. It would be so easy to refuse, to make an excuse, to maintain the safe distance she had established between them. But Nora's pleading look, combined with the recent revelations, made her think twice. "I have plans for later," she lied, trying to sound convincing. "Maybe another time." The disappointment on Nora's face was immediate. Adrian, however, seemed to understand. "Of course, no problem," he said, placing his briefcase on the table. "Nora, say goodbye to Kayla. She has to go." "But Daddy—" "No arguments, sweetie. Kayla has other commitments." Nora pouted, but let go of Kayla's hand. "You'll come back next Thursday, right?" "Of course I will," Kayla promised, bending down for a quick hug. "And maybe we can have dinner together another time." The girl's face lit up again. "Promise?" Kayla hesitated, glancing briefly at Adrian, who watched the scene with an unreadable expression. "I promise," she said finally. Adrian walked her to the door while Nora ran to get something from her room to show her father. "Thanks for staying late," he said when they were alone. "I hope it wasn't an inconvenience." "It wasn't," Kayla replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Nora is great company. She adores you. She talks about you all the time." There was a moment of awkward silence. Kayla realized this was the first time in months they were truly alone, speaking face to face. "Adrian," she began, unsure how to continue. "Nora mentioned something. She said you keep a picture of us." He looked surprised, then embarrassed. "Oh, that... She shouldn't be going through my things. It's none of my business, but, why? Why keep something like that after everything?" Adrian sighed, running a hand through his hair, the same nervous gesture Kayla remembered well. "Because it was the happiest time of my life," he said simply. "Even after everything that happened, I could never bring myself to get rid of that picture." Kayla didn't know how to respond. His words seemed sincere, but they evoked memories and emotions she had fought so hard to overcome. "I have to go," she said finally. Adrian nodded. "Of course, but Kayla, thank you for being here for her. It means a lot." On the way home, driving through streets already darkened by the late autumn afternoon, Kayla couldn't stop thinking about her conversation with Nora, about the girl's perceptiveness, the picture Adrian kept, the questions he asked about her. Something was developing there, something she hadn't anticipated when she first agreed to visit Nora. A tangle of unresolved feelings and stories that would eventually need to be confronted. Kayla understood, with growing clarity, that she couldn't avoid this truth for much longer. Sooner or later, she would have to face her past with Adrian, not just for herself, but for Nora, who deserved to understand what had happened between the adults in her life. And maybe, she reluctantly admitted to herself, for Adrian too. Because despite everything, despite the pain and betrayal, a part of her still wanted to understand why. Why he had chosen Sienna. Why he had thrown away what they had together. Maybe it was time to finally get some answers. November arrived with cold winds and grey skies. Kayla hadn't visited Nora in almost 3 weeks, since that revealing afternoon when the girl showed she knew more than the adults imagined. She had made excuses, a cold, unavoidable appointments, a trip to see a distant cousin. In truth, she needed time to organize her thoughts and decide how to deal with it all. Nora's messages, relayed by Adrian, broke her heart. "When are you coming back? Are you mad at me? Teddy misses you." Each one was a stab of guilt. It wasn't the girl's fault, after all, but Kayla wasn't ready to face the complications that were arising. On a particularly cold Thursday, Kayla was at the military base, helping organize the archives, a volunteer job she had taken to keep her mind occupied. As a reservist, she had no regular duties, but the familiar environment of the base offered a comfort and structure that her empty apartment couldn't provide. "Thompson," Sergeant Mills called from the archive doorway. "There's someone looking for you at the main gate." Kayla frowned. "Who?" "A man, didn't give a name, but said it's important." Her heart sped up. It could only be Adrian. No one else would look for her there. "Thanks, Sergeant, I'm on my way." She walked slowly through the familiar hallways, trying to control her growing anxiety. What did Adrian want? Why come to the base instead of just sending a text? When she reached the main gate, her suspicion was confirmed. Adrian was there, leaning against his car, wearing a dark coat and scarf. He looked nervous, rubbing his hands together and constantly checking his watch. "Adrian," she called, approaching cautiously. He turned, and Kayla noticed the deep dark circles under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't been sleeping well for days. "Kayla," he breathed, relieved. "So I wasn't sure you'd come. What are you doing here? We need to talk. Nora is devastated by your absence, and I miss you too." The direct honesty caught her off guard. Adrian had never been so open about his feelings. "I don't know if we have anything to talk about," she replied, crossing her arms defensively. "We do. A lot." He looked around the busy base parking lot. "Can we go somewhere quieter? There's a park nearby." Kayla hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse, to end this conversation before it even began. But another part, the part that thought about Nora every day, that missed her smile and her endless questions, knew that running away wouldn't solve anything. "All right. I'll meet you there in 15 minutes. I need to get my bag and let them know I'm leaving." The park was practically deserted at that time of day. The trees, now almost bare, swayed in the cold November wind. Kayla parked near the artificial lake and saw Adrian sitting on a bench looking at the water. She approached silently, sitting at a safe distance. For a few moments, neither of them spoke, just watching the ducks swimming peacefully, oblivious to the human drama unfolding. "I know you don't want to see me," Adrian began finally, "but I need you to listen." Kayla didn't answer, just nodded briefly, indicating he could continue. "Nora asks about you every day. She doesn't understand why you stopped visiting. She thinks she did something wrong." "It wasn't her fault," Kayla murmured. "She never did anything wrong." "I know. It's my fault. It always has been." Adrian took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. I think you deserve to know the whole truth about what happened. Kayla felt her body tense. Part of her didn't want to hear it, preferring to keep the old wounds cauterized, even if imperfectly. But she knew she had to face this, for Nora and for herself. I'm listening, she said simply. Adrian looked down at his own hands, avoiding her gaze. I was immature. When Sienna told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I thought I had to stay with her. The words hit Kayla like a punch, so that was it. Sienna had gotten pregnant, and he felt obligated to choose her. You and Sienna, before we broke up, she asked, her voice trembling. Adrian nodded, ashamed. It was just one time. I was drunk. We had argued that day about moving in together. I was scared to take the next step. Sienna was there, listening to my stupid fears. Spare me the details, Kayla cut in, her stomach churning. I'm sorry, he murmured. A few weeks later, she told me she was pregnant. I went into a complete panic. I thought I had to take responsibility, stay with her, be a present father. He paused, looking at the lake. A group of ducks took off, flapping their wings loudly. After Nora was born, everything changed. Sienna realized she wasn't ready. She became depressed, distant. One day, I came home from work and found a note. She said she didn't want this responsibility, and she left us. Kayla closed her eyes, absorbing the information. Sienna had abandoned her own daughter. The same Sienna who always talked about having a big family, who joked about being godmother to Kayla's children. I never heard from her again, Adrian continued. I tried to contact her in the first few months, more for Nora's sake than for mine. She sent papers relinquishing her parental rights and asking not to be contacted. A heavy silence settled between them. Kayla tried to process it all. She imagined Adrian alone with a baby, abandoned, trying to be both a father and a mother. Despite her anger, she couldn't help but feel a pang of compassion. Why didn't you tell me this before? She asked finally. What would I have said? Hey, Kayla, I cheated on you with your best friend, but she left me, so can we get back together? You had every right to hate me. You still do. This isn't about rights, Adrian. It's about honesty. Kayla stood up, unable to sit still. She walked a few steps, trying to organize her thoughts. The revelation explained a lot, but it didn't erase the pain, didn't undo the betrayal. You could have chosen anyone. She turned to him, her voice breaking with suppressed emotion. But you chose to betray me with my best friend. I lost my boyfriend. I lost my friend. My life lost its meaning. Adrian tried to approach, but she held up a hand, keeping him at a distance. I needed something else, she continued. I enlisted because it was the only way to escape from everything and everyone. It was the only way to not go crazy. The tears she had held back for so long threatened to fall. Kayla took a deep breath, forcing them back. She would not cry. Not now, not in front of him. Every mission, every dangerous place they sent me, I went without fear, because nothing could hurt more than it already did. Do you understand that? Adrian lowered his head, visibly shaken by her words. Regret was etched into every line of his face, in the defeated posture of his shoulders. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said softly. I just wanted you to know the truth, and I wanted to ask, for Nora, don't abandon her too. She doesn't deserve to lose someone else she loves. The mention of Nora hit Kayla deeply. The girl wasn't to blame for any of this. She didn't deserve to suffer for the mistakes of the adults in her life. I won't abandon her, she promised. But I need time to process all of this. Adrian nodded, understanding. Of course. As much time as you need. Kayla turned, starting to walk away. She couldn't stay there any longer, looking at the man she once loved, the man who had betrayed her trust in the worst possible way. Even now, years later, the pain was still there, less sharp perhaps, but still present. Kayla, Adrian called when she was a few steps away. I'm sorry, more than I can ever say. She paused briefly, without turning around. I know, but I still can't forgive you. And with that, she continued on her way, leaving Adrian alone in the silent park. The grey November sky perfectly matched the turmoil of emotions in her chest. Not a storm, not a calm, just a constant sadness she didn't know when would end. December arrived with snow and Christmas lights lining the streets. A week had passed since the conversation in the park, and Kayla still felt the weight of Adrian's revelations. The truth about Sienna, about the abandonment, about what really happened 5 years ago, it all swirled in her mind like a relentless vortex. On Thursday morning, Kayla turned off her alarm before it even rang. She hadn't slept. Again. It was the day to visit Nora, but after hours of tossing and turning, she reached a painful decision. She needed to step away. At least until she could sort out her feelings. With trembling fingers, she typed a message to Adrian. "I can't make it today, or for the next few weeks. I need time. Please, explain it to Nora in a way she'll understand." She sent it before she could change her mind and tossed the phone on the bed, as if the device burned her hands. A part of her, the part that already loved Nora as if she were her own, screamed that she was making a mistake. But the other part, the one still bleeding from the betrayal, insisted it was necessary. How could she explain to a 5-year-old child that she couldn't look at her without seeing the result of a betrayal? Without remembering that she could have been her mother in another life? The phone buzzed with Adrian's reply. "I understand. She'll miss you, but we respect your space. We'll be here when you're ready." The kindness in the message only made it harder. The days dragged on. Kayla threw herself into volunteer work at the military base, took a temporary job as a self-defense instructor at the community center, and filled every free minute so she wouldn't have to think. But the nights were impossible to escape. Lying in the dark, she saw Nora's face, she heard her laugh, remembered her curious questions, the way her eyes shone when she learned something new. How had a child she'd barely known for a few months managed to infiltrate her heart so deeply? On the second Thursday, without a visit, she received a photo from Adrian. Nora was holding a drawing of 3 people, a small one, a tall one with dark hair, and another wearing what looked like a uniform, a silent message that said more than any words. Kayla cried for the first time in years. On the third Thursday, Martha, the babysitter, called. "Sorry to bother you, Kayla. I know it's none of my business, but Nora asks about you every day. In the morning, the first thing she does is ask if you're coming today, and at night, before bed, she asks again." Kayla closed her eyes, clutching the phone. How is she? Sad, confused. She doesn't understand why you disappeared. What did Adrian tell her? That you're busy, that you have important things to take care of. But she's too smart to accept that for long. After hanging up, Kayla walked to her apartment window. The snow was falling softly outside, covering everything in a white, silent blanket. What would Nora's Christmas be like? Would she have a big tree? Would she get the presents she wanted? Who would make her hot chocolate on cold mornings? In her room, she opened the nightstand drawer and took out the drawing Nora had made for her months ago. The two of them, holding hands, a simple future that now seemed impossibly complicated. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Kayla, Adrian had started to reorganize his routine. After their conversation in the park, he realized not only how much his daughter missed Kayla, but also how much he himself had neglected his time with Nora. He started leaving the office earlier, delegating tasks he once considered essential. He began picking Nora up from school a few times a week, letting Martha go home early. On a particularly cold afternoon, he took Nora to Memorial Park, a place they hadn't visited in years, since she was a baby and Sienna was still with them. It was an old park, with a traditional carousel and a small pond that froze in the winter. "Have we been here before?" Nora asked, looking in awe at the lit-up carousel. "Yes, when you were very little," Adrian replied, helping her onto a white horse with gold details. "It was your mother's favorite park." It was the first time in a long while that he had mentioned Sienna to his daughter. Nora looked at him with curiosity but asked no questions. She was too busy enjoying the circular motion and the old-fashioned music coming from the carousel. Afterward, they walked by the frozen pond Ichu, where some children were skating under their parents' supervision. They bought roasted chestnuts from a street vendor and watched the ducks that braved the cold. "Can we bring Kayla here someday?" Nora asked suddenly, blowing on her hands to warm them. Adrian hesitated, unsure how to answer. Maybe, when she's less busy. Is she mad at me? Did I do something wrong? No, sweetie, of course not. Adrian knelt in the snow, getting to his daughter's eye level. Kayla is just going through a tough time. Sometimes adults need time to figure out complicated things in here. He pointed to his own chest. Say heart stuff, Nora asked, surprising him with her perception. Yes, heart stuff. That first visit to the park was followed by others. Adrian and Nora created new rituals, feeding the ducks on Saturdays, riding the carousel when there wasn't a long line, drinking hot chocolate at the cafe by the pond. It was as if they were building new memories to replace Kayla's absence. Martha noticed the change. Nora would come back from these outings radiant, recounting everything with an enthusiasm she hadn't shown in weeks. Daddy let me throw corn to the ducks. One of them almost ate from my hand. Or, there's a golden horse on the carousel that's just mine. Daddy said no one else can ride it. They were small moments of happiness that helped ease the sadness of Kayla's absence. Adrian was making an effort, and it was making a difference. On the fourth Thursday without Kayla, Adrian came home early and found Nora sitting on the sofa, hugging the singed teddy bear, staring at the door as if expecting someone. Sire, she's not coming today either, is she? She asked when she saw her father. Adrian sat beside his daughter, putting his arm around her small shoulders. No, princess, not today. Not ever again. The simple question held so much fear that Adrian felt a lump in his throat. Don't say that, I'm sure she'll come back one day. Promise. Adrian wanted to promise. He wanted to give his daughter the certainty she so desperately needed, but he couldn't. He didn't know if Kayla would ever return to their lives. She likes you very much, Nora. That I can promise. The girl seemed to be content with that answer. She rested her head on her father's shoulder and fell silent, hugging the bear that connected her to Kayla. That same night, after putting Nora to bed, Adrian sat in the kitchen with a cup of cold coffee, staring at his phone. He thought about texting Kayla, telling her how much Nora missed her, asking if there was any chance of reconciliation. But he stopped himself. Kayla needed space. He had already caused enough damage in her life. The least he could do now was respect her decision to stay away, no matter how much it hurt everyone. Across town, Kayla stared out her window, watching the snow fall silently. She had spent another sleepless night, thinking about how much Nora had become a part of her, about the emptiness she felt on Thursdays, thinking about whether what she was doing, staying away, was really protection or just fear. She closed her eyes, and Nora's image came instantly, smiling, asking about the world, hugging the singed teddy bear that connected them. And then, inevitably, Adrian's image appeared too, regretful, trying to fix his mistakes, loving his daughter enough to change his life for her. She could keep running. She could protect her broken heart, avoiding any chance of new disappointment. Or she could face her fear and take a chance, not necessarily on Adrian, but on herself. A chance to find out if there was room for forgiveness in her heart. She wasn't ready to decide yet. But for the first time in weeks, she fell asleep thinking not about the past but about the future. A future where maybe, just maybe, there was room for a new beginning. January brought a deep chill, with snow piled up on the sidewalks and bare trees. It had been over a month since Kayla had visited Nora, though thoughts of the girl never left her for a moment. Adrian's apartment was quiet that Friday afternoon. Nora was sitting at the living room table, drawing with less enthusiasm than she usually had. The vibrant colors she normally chose had been replaced by more somber tones, dark blues, grays, browns. The drawing taking shape appeared to be a house, with two figures standing outside. Adrian watched his daughter from the kitchen as he prepared hot chocolate. It was a Friday tradition they had established in recent weeks, a small routine that tried to fill the void left by Kayla's visits. "It's almost ready, princess," he called, pouring the steaming liquid into 2 mugs. Nora didn't answer. She continued drawing, her small tongue peeking out from the corner of her mouth in concentration. Teddy, the singed bear, sat in the chair next to her, like a silent guest. Adrian approached, placing the mugs on the table. "What are you drawing?" "Our house," Nora replied without looking up. "Me and you outside." "It looks nice." "But why are we outside?" Nora shrugged. a surprisingly adult gesture for someone so small. Just because. Adrian didn't press. Instead, he gently pushed the mug toward her. Your chocolate is going to get cold. Nora picked up the mug with both hands, blowing on the surface where the marshmallows were melting. She took a small sip and then, still looking at the liquid, asked in a sad voice, I want to go see Kayla. Do you think she doesn't like me anymore? The question hit Adrian like a punch to the gut. He had been dreading this moment, when the vague explanations about Kayla being busy would no longer suffice. Of course she likes you, Nora. A lot. Then why doesn't she come anymore? It's been a long time. Adrian took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Sometimes people need time to think, even when they love other people very much. She's been thinking for a whole month, Nora observed, her childish logic relentless. Fio, it must be a very, very hard thing. It is, sweetie. Is it because of you? The direct question caught him off guard. You two fought, didn't you? I heard you talking that day at the hospital. Adrian felt a tightness in his chest. Nora had understood more than he realized. We had some problems a long time ago. Grown-up problems. But can't you fix it? When I fight with Emma at school, the teacher makes us talk and then everything is okay. The simplicity of the solution almost made Adrian smile, despite the situation. It's a little more complicated than that, Princess. Nora was silent for a moment, stirring her spoon in the chocolate. Then she looked up at her father, determined. I want to see her. Can we go to where she works, please? Nora, I don't think that's a good idea. Kayla asked for space and, please, Daddy. Nora's voice trembled slightly. I miss her so much. And Teddy does too. Adrian looked at his daughter, at the blue eyes so much like his, at the blonde hair inherited from the mother she never really knew. He saw the genuine sadness, the longing she felt for Kayla. I'll see what I can do, he promised, holding her small hand. I can't promise anything, but I'll try. Nora's hopeful smile was like a ray of sunshine amidst the winter clouds. The next morning, after leaving Nora with Martha, Adrian drove to the military base. It was snowing lightly, the flakes dancing in the air. He approached the main gate, unsure if Kayla would be there on a Saturday. Can I help you, sir? The uniformed guard asked. I'm looking for Sergeant Kayla Thompson. She's in the reserves now, but she still volunteers here. The guard made a quick call and nodded. She's at the gym. I'll let her know she has a visitor. Adrian waited nervously for almost 15 minutes. Finally, he saw Kayla walking toward the gate. She was wearing workout clothes, sweatpants, a base t-shirt, and a track jacket. Her hair was pulled back in the usual military bun. Adrian, she said as she approached, what are you doing here? Sorry to show up unannounced. I tried calling you, but it went to voicemail. I was teaching a self-defense class to the new recruits, she explained, crossing her arms. Did something happen? Not exactly, it's just... Nora asked about you yesterday. Actually, she asks about you every day, but yesterday was different. Kayla didn't respond, but he noticed a subtle change in her expression upon hearing Nora's name. She thinks you don't like her anymore, he continued. I tried to explain, that's not it, but she's 5 years old, it's hard for her to understand. Adrian, I already explained that I need time. This is all very complicated for me. I know. He took a step forward, moving closer to the gate that separated them. When he spoke again, his voice was low but firm. Please, I didn't come for me. She misses you every single day. Don't punish her for my mistakes. Kayla looked away, watching the snow fall around them. For a long moment, she said nothing. Adrian could see the internal struggle in her eyes, the hurt versus the affection she felt for Nora. Does she still have that teddy bear? Kayla asked finally. Teddy? She never lets him go. Sleeps with him every night. Something in Kayla's gaze softened. She took a deep breath as if making a difficult decision. What time do you pick her up from school on Thursday? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. At 3. Martha stays with her until I get there, around 6. I'll be there at 3:30, Kayla said. But Adrian, I'm doing this for Nora, not for us. I still need to process everything that happened. I completely understand, he replied, trying to contain the relief in his voice. "Thank you, Kayla. Really." The following Thursday, Kayla parked in front of Adrian's house at 3:25 p.m. She sat in the car for a moment, trying to calm her racing heart. Almost 2 months had passed since the last time she had seen Nora. How would the girl react? Finally, she gathered her courage and got out of the car. She carried a small gift bag, a toy doctor's kit, remembering Nora's dream of becoming a doctor. Martha answered the door, a look of relief on her face. "She's going to be so happy to see you," she whispered, motioning for Kayla to come inside. "She's in the living room, drawing." Kayla entered silently. Nora was facing away, sitting at the coffee table, concentrating on her drawing. Teddy, the singed bear, was propped up against a book beside her. "Hi, Nora," Kayla called softly. The girl froze. For a second, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she turned around. Her blue eyes widened in disbelief. "Kayla," she whispered. "It's me, sweetie." Nora jumped up, knocking over colored pencils. She ran to Kayla and hugged her legs tightly, pressing her face against her coat. "You came back! You came back!" Kayla knelt, hugging her properly. The familiar scent of children's shampoo and the warmth of that small body against hers made her eyes well up. "I thought you were never coming back," Nora said, her voice muffled against Kayla's shoulder. "I just needed some time," Kayla replied, pulling back slightly to look into the girl's eyes. "But I missed you so much." "Me too!" Nora ran back to the table and grabbed Teddy, bringing him to show Kayla. "Teddy missed you too." "He cried sometimes." "Did he?" Kayla smiled, taking the bear. "Well, I'm here now, and I brought you a present." Nora's eyes lit up as she opened the bag and found the doctor's kit. "It's just like a real doctor's," she exclaimed, taking out the plastic stethoscope. "Can I examine you?" "Of course you can, Dr. Bennett." They spent the afternoon between medical play and drawing. Nora told her everything that had happened during Kayla's absence: the visits to the park with her dad, Christmas with the big tree in the living room, the snowman they built in the yard. The following weeks brought a new routine. Kayla resumed her regular visits, not just on Thursdays, but also occasionally on Saturdays. Each visit strengthened the bond between her and Nora, as if the time apart had never existed. Nora waited for her eagerly every day, telling stories from school, showing her new drawings, and sharing her discoveries. Her interest in medicine grew, fueled by the children's books about the human body that Kayla brought. Together, they created a hospital in Nora's room, where Teddy and other toys were patients in need of care. Adrian kept a respectful distance during these visits, usually arriving only when Kayla was about to leave or busying himself with work in his office. But sometimes, inevitably, their paths would cross. On a particularly quiet afternoon in February, as winter began to show signs of easing, Adrian came home early from work. He found Kayla and Nora in the backyard, building a small snow fort. He watched from the kitchen window, seeing them laugh together, how Kayla patiently helped Nora pile up the snow, how they shared a bond that he could only admire from afar. When Nora ran inside to get dry gloves, Adrian went out into the yard. Kayla noticed him, straightening up and adjusting her scarf. "She's so happy," he commented, watching his daughter through the window. "I haven't seen her like this in months." "She's an amazing kid," Kayla replied. "So smart, so curious." "Like you," Adrian said softly. Kayla didn't answer. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken words. Adrian watched the two of them together, the woman he once loved and the daughter who was his whole world. He thought about everything he had lost because of his mistakes. He took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "I never forgot you." Kayla heard him, he knew. He saw it in the way her shoulders tensed slightly, but she didn't reply. She wasn't ready to forgive yet. He understood that. He respected that. Nora came running back, showing off her dry gloves and a radiant smile. She didn't notice the tension between the adults. "Daddy, are you going to help too? We're building a castle." "Of course, Princess, if Kayla doesn't mind." "It's fine with me," she replied, returning her attention to the snow construction. They worked together for almost an hour, shaping walls and towers in the small snow castle. The afternoon began to fade, the sky turning orange on the horizon. When they finished, Nora was exhausted, but satisfied. She sat between the two adults on the small garden bench, proudly observing her creation. "It turned out nice, didn't it?" she asked, her nose red from the cold. "It's beautiful," Kayla agreed. "You have a talent for architecture." "What's architecture?" "It's the people who design and plan houses and buildings." Nora considered the information for a moment. "I think I'd rather be a doctor. That way I can take care of you and Daddy when you get old." Adrian laughed softly. That's a good plan." Nora was silent for a few moments, looking back and forth between her father and Kayla. Then, in a surprising move, she took Kayla's hand and held it tenderly. "I wish you were my mommy," she whispered, with the innocence only a child could possess. Kayla felt her heart tighten in her chest. She couldn't respond, emotion closing her throat. She looked at Adrian, who seemed equally shaken by his daughter's declaration. Nora, sensing the awkward silence, let go of Kayla's hand and ran inside, probably feeling she had said something that made the adults uncomfortable. Kayla sat there, looking at her own hands, still feeling the warmth of Nora's small hand in hers. The girl's words echoed in her mind. "I wish you were my mommy." Could that be possible? To forgive Adrian enough to form a family? Or maybe that was the wrong question. Maybe the real question was, could she deny herself and Nora the chance to have what they both wanted so much, just because of past mistakes? She looked at the snow castle they had built together, at the house where an incredible little girl was waiting for her. And in that moment, Kayla understood that even without all the answers, even without the certainty of complete forgiveness, that innocent love had already changed everything. It had rebuilt parts of her she believed were lost forever. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.